Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Lisa. I'm an Australian living in Amsterdam and I have lived here for just over 3 years now. In today's video, I'm finally going to walk you through the process and our experience of buying a home in the Netherlands as an expat or an international person. There is really just so much information to cover and so many steps involved with buying a home. So it is going to be a 3-part video series. The first video, which is this video today, is going to be about the preparation stage. How do you figure out how much money you can borrow, whether or not you should hire a makelaar or a buyer's agent, and also the home inspection process too. The second video is going to be all about the buying stage. What happens when you do find a home that you like, and what are the steps that follow after you submit an offer or a bid. And the third video is about whether or not you should actually do it. I don't think buying a home is the right decision for everyone. I do think it depends on your personal circumstances. And so in that video, I'm going to talk about some questions that I think you should at least think about before you go down this journey. I will also talk about the things that I think we could have done differently if we were to start the process all over again. This video is entirely based on my personal experience only. I'm not an expert on this matter. I have only gone through the home buying process once. Some of the things that I mention will of course be maybe a little bit different depending on the city that you live in the Netherlands. Having said that, I do think most of the things I mention in all my videos will be applicable to you no matter where you are in the Netherlands. Everyone who holds a BSN number in the Netherlands can apply for a Dutch mortgage. The second thing to note is that you can still apply for a mortgage even if you are on a temporary work contract as opposed to a permanent work contract. And I'll talk more about that in the video today. The third thing that's really important to note in the preparation stage is that the mortgage approval and home buying process for an expat or an international person is exactly the same as it is for a local Dutch person. There's no such thing as an expat mortgage with special conditions or anything like that. The most important first step for the preparation stage is finding out how much money you can borrow. In order to do this, we contacted a few mortgage broker companies, OHAL, Expat Mortgages, and All for Finance. All three of those broker companies asked us exactly the same questions. They asked us things about our income, what kind of work contract we have. They also walk you through the monthly mortgage repayments based on the hypothetical amount that you might borrow from the bank. In the end, we decided to go with the company OHAL for a few different reasons. OHAL charged the lowest fee out of the 3 companies that we inquired after. We had a friend who had used them before and had a really positive experience with them. And the third reason is because the service we received from beginning to end was absolutely fantastic. They were so responsive. They explained everything really clearly in English for us. And we just had a really good vibe with the broker that we were put in touch with. This last part was probably the part that really sealed the deal for me. I'm not someone who's particularly familiar with banking terminology or financial terminology. Quite often I find financial jargon very intimidating and confusing. There's always an added layer of confusion if you are not native to the country or you don't speak the local language fluently. So for them to actually be able to explain everything to us so clearly and so concisely in English, it really made a huge difference for me and made me feel confident that they would take care of us every step of the way. So yeah, those are the main reasons why we chose them. I do have a referral link in my description box down below. I was not sponsored to say any of this. I just wholeheartedly recommend them. Regardless of who you actually choose, I think this last part is the most important part and the thing that you should look out for when you are deciding which mortgage broker you should go with. I also mentioned earlier that it's really not a problem if you are on a temporary work contract. In my particular case, I was only about 3 months into my new job when we started the whole process of buying a home. So if you are on a temporary work contract like I was, your mortgage broker will ask you to ask your employer to complete a document called a werkgeversverklaring. and an intentieverklaring. This is a declaration of intent from your employer saying that they intend to convert your temporary contract into a permanent contract after its expiry. And importantly to note, it's not a legally binding document. So even if your employer signs it, doesn't mean they're legally obligated to transition your temporary contract into a permanent contract. However, if you can show this document to your mortgage provider, the lender will still treat your mortgage application as if you were on a permanent contract. Step 2, calculate your mortgage repayments. In the Netherlands, you can borrow up to 100% of the property value, which is really amazing. But there are 2 things to keep in mind. Firstly, the listing price and the purchase price may not necessarily correspond to the property value. What do I mean by that? I'm gonna walk you through an example. You might have a property that is listed for 350,000, sold for 400,000, but then the property valuation or appraisal report may say that the property is only valued at 380,000. You can only borrow up to 100% of the property value, which means the mortgage lender will only lend you 380,000. Therefore, if you submitted an offer of 400,000, you have to pay the 20,000 difference out of your own pocket. I hope that example makes it a little bit clearer for you. The second thing you should keep in mind is that if you're buying a property in a really hot property market, like in Amsterdam, the listing price is likely to be lower than what it will actually sell for in the end. Why is that? Because people tend to overbid in Amsterdam because there is just so much demand and so little supply. We ended up bidding and paying about 15% more than the listed price. These are the 2 things you need to keep in mind when you consider what your mortgage repayments might be. In our case, we wanted our mortgage repayments to be on par with or lower than the monthly rental costs for similar apartments in Amsterdam. So therefore, we actually chose to not borrow the absolute maximum amount of money that our mortgage lender was willing to give us. I'm not going to launch into the specifics of how monthly mortgage repayments are calculated because I'm not a financial advisor, and that is really something that your mortgage broker can advise you on. So I recommend you talk to them and let them walk you through that process. But those are the things I would keep at the back of my mind as I'm assessing those numbers presented by the mortgage broker. Okay, step 3, totally optional step, and this is to find a makelaar or a buyer's agent. Local Dutch people or experienced buyers in the Netherlands, they tend to buy a home without a makelaar. But a lot of international people do choose to get a makelaar, and we decided ultimately to get a makelaar for a few different reasons. We cannot speak Dutch fluently and all the legal documents are in Dutch. Secondly, we had never gone through the home buying process in the Netherlands before. We were really in a situation where we needed as much guidance as we could get. You might be asking yourself, well, what does a makelaar actually do? I would define a makelaar as somewhat of a facilitator between yourself and a selling agent. In our case, our makelaar provided the following services. Our makelaar said from the outset that she would not find properties for us. We had to find the properties ourselves on Funda.nl, which is the main website where all the listings are placed. We would then forward those listings to the makelaar. She would book the inspections for us and she would come to all the inspections with us. When we inspected properties, she sometimes helped us identify aspects of the apartment that needed attention. For example, the quality of the materials used in the home, whether the building was well maintained, whether the ground lease conditions were favorable or not. I'll talk more about ground lease in step 5. When it came time to bid for a place that we liked, our makelaar gave us an indication of how much she thought we should bid in order to secure the apartment or the home. And our makelaar also submitted the bids with our conditions on our behalf. When it came to the contract signing process, our makelaar helped us understand the key aspects of the contract that we were signing. She was not an official translator, she's not a lawyer, but in the absence of both those people, she kind of was able to give us a little bit more guidance on what we were signing and what we were agreeing to. One of the biggest unexpected benefits of having a makelaar was that our bid was actually accepted while we were on holiday. This meant that we actually couldn't attend the signing of the purchase agreement at the notary's office in Amsterdam. And in order to overcome this issue, we made our makelaar our power of attorney, and she signed the purchase agreement on our behalf. This was actually such a useful advantage that we didn't plan for. We don't have any family here, and I don't think this is the kind of favor that you can ask a friend to do for you. It's a really, really big responsibility. So it was actually really handy that we had a makelaar who we could rely on when we were not able to physically be here. I'm going to go through what a makelaar is not for. Firstly, it goes without saying, a makelaar cannot make the decision for you. Even their advice about how much you should bid for a property is just advice. You don't actually have to follow that advice blindly. In our case, our makelaar recommended that we bid 20,000 more than we decided to eventually submit, and we ended up still getting the place. You have to remember that the makelaar's main objective is to secure the home that you like. Sometimes the best guarantee for that is to bid a significantly higher amount than what other people might be bidding. But overbidding is kind of a dangerous practice. It's a silent bidding process, as they call it. So you're kind of in the dark. You really don't want to overbid for a place, because remember what I said earlier, you actually have to pay out of your own pocket the amount that is not covered by your mortgage. The second thing a makelaar did not do for us, and maybe this differs, I'm interested to hear other people's experiences. We were really hoping our makelaar could give us some local insider information or guidance about the different neighborhoods of Amsterdam. Some questions we wanted explicit information on was how safe the neighborhood was, gentrification and development trends, what the local perceptions of these areas were. Like, if her daughter was to buy a home in Amsterdam, what would she recommend as the most appealing location, or the place that would have the most growth potential? I could almost say she was a bit too diplomatic. She basically said all the areas were good. It was up to us to decide. So that was a little bit disappointing. We thought that maybe having a makelaar would give us access or information about homes that hadn't been publicly listed on Funda yet. But our makelaar explained to us that because the market is so competitive in Amsterdam, most owners are motivated to publicly list their home online because that maximizes their chances of getting the highest possible bid. So there really isn't a private database per se in Amsterdam. And again, this could differ in other cities that are less competitive in the Netherlands. How do you find one? I think the best way to find one is honestly through word of mouth. Ask your friends, ask your colleagues, ask people on Facebook or Reddit. You will find that even if your immediate friends don't know someone, they are likely to know someone else who has gone through the home buying process before and may have a recommendation for you. So just talk to as many people as you can. In terms of price, it costs about 3,000 to 3,500 euros to hire a makelaar. So yes, it's not a small sum of money. That's why not everyone chooses to get one. For us, it absolutely was the right decision. I don't think we could have done it without one, but it's not impossible to go through the home buying process without a makelaar. Okay, step 4, you need to start thinking about the criteria that you want to target during your home search process. So the first thing is to decide what location or area that you want to live in. We wanted 2 bedrooms minimum, a minimum of 55 square meters. It had to be conveniently located. It had to be close to public transportation. We wanted a place that didn't require a full head-to-toe renovation. I think it's very helpful to establish and know for sure what your criteria is from the beginning. Every week there will be new listings on Funda, and if you don't have your criteria set from the start, it can be kind of an overwhelming process. You're going to end up seeing a lot of different places and you're going to end up feeling unsure about what you actually want. So that's why I think this is a step 4. Think about what you want, think about the lifestyle that you want to lead, think about what you absolutely cannot compromise on, and then go from there. Step 5, this is kind of the exciting and the fun part of the home buying process, which is to start looking for homes. As I said earlier, everything is listed on funda.nl. You can download the Funda app on your phone, but if you're not fluent in Dutch, I actually think it's a lot easier to use Funda on your desktop or your laptop, because then you can use the Google Translate extension. Let's go on Funda and look for homes together. So let me open up Funda. So this is typically how I would search for a home. Okay, let's say 500,000 is my absolute limit. Suddenly, you've got 1,000 results. Keeping in mind Amsterdam is really big, right? So you've got like a bit of everything here. I'll click here for some additional filters. I don't want something that's been around for a really long time, maybe 10 days. The minimum area I actually said 55, but 50 is okay. I can just filter later. Bedrooms, I want 2 bedrooms at least. Still got so many, but actually the main thing that's so useful is to press card. Once you hit card, you'll see the map. And for me, that is just so much easier to use. Again, in Amsterdam, homes tend to sell above the listing price. So we always look for places that were listed for about 15 to 20% lower than what we were actually willing to pay. The things that I think are most important to look out for in the Funda listing are as follows. The ground lease costs. What is ground lease or leasehold? The majority of properties in Amsterdam are built on land owned by the city of Amsterdam. Ground lease is the fee that the municipality charges for the use of the land. So when you buy a home that has ground lease costs, it means that you're not actually buying the ground on which the home is built. You are instead signing a lease for the right to use the ground for a certain period of time. You're renting the ground from the city of Amsterdam. And ground lease can affect you differently depending on the arrangement that is in place, because it might not only be a recurring fee that you have to pay for as long as you live in the home, but it could also affect your selling potential when you eventually decide to leave the home. The other important thing to notice or look out for in a Funda listing is the energy rating label. The labels range from A to F, A being the most energy efficient and F being the least energy efficient. Unfortunately, in Amsterdam, a lot of the homes are really old. Infrastructure-wise, it does mean that many homes are rated towards the bottom of that energy efficiency scale. Obviously, the more energy efficient, the better. The third thing to notice is the VVE strata costs, or the Dutch Homeowners Association costs. Every owner-occupied apartment block in the Netherlands has a Dutch Owners Association, and their role is to represent the interests of all the homeowners in the building. The Dutch Homeowners Association is responsible for taking care of all the common areas of the building, for instance, the lighting in the common areas or the corridors, the maintenance of the facade of your building, your window frames, things like that. And in exchange for this service, you do have to pay a monthly service fee. Say I'm interested in this home. I mean, it generally does look quite cozy and nice. The best thing to do is to contact the selling agent as soon as possible. As I said, in Amsterdam, it's super competitive. So you can press here, you can either give them a call, or you can contact the broker via filling out an online form. Step number 6, inspecting homes. I think we inspected about 10 homes in total. One really important thing to note is that unfortunately, the inspections only happen during standard work hours because everyone has really good work-life balance. So this is very different to Australia, where inspections typically happen on a Wednesday evening or a Saturday morning. It really required a lot of juggling with our work schedules. We had to have very understanding managers. It was very inconvenient to have to pop out in the middle of the day to go to an inspection. There's nothing you can do about it. I think most employers are understanding of this situation because they likely would have gone through this process themselves before. But just keep that in mind that it is a little bit of a tiring process, and this is even more complicated if you are wanting to buy buy a home in a location that you do not currently live or work in. Things I really try to look out for: how much additional renovation is required if you were to purchase the home. Ideally, if you can, it's also good to try and find out how much those elements would cost in addition to the price that you pay for the apartment. What is the condition of things that might be quite expensive to replace? So for instance, the window frames, the glazing, even the bedroom doors are actually really expensive. How well maintained is the building? Is it dirty or run down? Are the common areas well cared for? How much traffic is there on the street? How noisy does it get? What does the street or area feel like at different times of the day, so morning, afternoon, and evening? What do the neighbors look like? It's really helpful, I think, to just hang around, to people watch and see who is coming in and out of the apartment building, to see what kind of demographic the neighborhood is. You know, is it mostly younger people? Is it couples? Is it people who have families? Is it older people? Another way to get a feel for the neighborhood and vibe is to visit the shops nearby. When we were doing the inspection, we also stood in the balcony for quite a period of time. This allowed us to see other people's gardens. I actually think you can tell a lot about someone and how much they respect their space based on how well they take care of their garden. How close is it to places that you visit or go to a lot? What kind of facilities or services are near the home? For instance, what's the distance to the supermarket, the distance to restaurants and cafes, distance to your workplace, the public transportation options, etc. Because personally for me, I don't want to live in a place that's in the middle of nowhere and that's going to be really inconvenient for me to live the day-to-day life that I need to live in the city. So those are all the questions that I would be asking for every single place that you inspect. If you do hire a makelaar, I think a makelaar can give you some advice on some of those questions. Hopefully, after all of that, an exciting moment will come, and that is you will see a home that you like and you want to submit a bid for it. So I'm going to talk about that in the next video, where I'm going to walk you through the buying stage. What happens when you bid for a place that you like, and what happens if that bid is accepted. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up so I know that this video was actually useful to you. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below and hopefully I'll be able to answer that for you. See you in the next video in part 2. Bye!